welcome to Quick Look At, the show in which I, Zen, am going to take a quick look at random games, and of course review them. This time we're looking at Wario Land 2, a Game Boy game released on March the 1st in America and March the 22nd in Europe. Originally a Game Boy title, which got an updated re-release for the Game Boy Color the following year. Like Wario Land 1, you take on the role of a greedy treasure hunter Wario. As far as the story goes, after the events of Wario Land 1, Wario got himself a new castle. And now he's just spending his days sleeping, dreaming about his treasure or some shit. The slacking off, however, was pretty short-lived, since a group of shady characters now have an interest in Wario's treasures. Thus they infiltrate his castle and steal his 3 bags of treasure with no arms because logic. They do not just leave yet though, because firstly they mess around in the castle a bit by turning on a big ass faucet, but also by throwing this rather large living alarm clock on the ground, which immediately starts to make a god-awful noise. And that's another thing that bugs me. If you're going to rob someone, why the hell would you want to wake him up? That's just stupid! Anyhow, these shady characters appear to be Captain Syrup's henchmen, and they have taken off with Wario's treasure. And I can already hear you asking, who the hell is Captain Syrup? Well, Syrup is basically the one female antagonist from the first game. Thanks to the alarm clock, Wario wakes up and decides to chase after Syrup and her henchmen, making his way through several worlds. Wario's castle, which is now full of water, Maze Woods, which is full of chickens and bees, and he even takes a train to the city. And after all that bullshit, he finally makes it through the woods to Syrup's castle. Moving on to gameplay, this game controls just like any other platform. You have your basic moving around and jumping controls, nothing too special there. Compared to most platformers, Wario has something different though. He can do ground pounds, shoulder tackles to break objects or destroy enemies. In this game, however, that's the way of defeating enemies. Jumping on their heads will only knock him over for a bit, allowing Wario to pick enemies up and throw them around, either to knock over a few more enemies or by breaking a special kind of wall. Wario can also crouch, and if you press the directional keys, he can walk around while crouching. And next to that, if you do a shoulder tackle and duck, you can make Wario slide through tight spaces. This is not only effective for moving around, but it can also be very useful to use against zombies. There are also a few ways for Wario to jump a bit higher, in order to get to hard to reach areas, by either holding the directional pad up and jumping, or by even using an enemy as a trampoline instead. And last but not least, there's rolling. If you push the down button on the D-pad, Wario will start to roll down slopes. And he won't stop until you hit the wall. Rolling allows you to break walls and blocks. While you are rolling, you're also able to jump. Breaking walls can lead you to secret areas full of coins and other stuff. Some walls don't look like they are breakable. Best way is to try and break the walls by either shoulder tackling them or throwing enemies against it. Because secret areas are literally everywhere.
And it's pretty rewarding to find them.
The main gimmick of the game is you'll never encounter a game over screen, and it works extremely well. But now I can hear you all saying, no game over equals no challenge, duh. Well, my dearest viewer, that is where you're oh so wrong. Since Wario is basically immortal, I guess they knew they had to compensate it somehow. And they did. The challenge in Wario Land 2 is based around how well you, as a player, are able to platform and dodge enemy attacks. The game is built around having quite a few pits, so when you do fuck up your jump or get knocked back by an enemy, you'll have to do the platforming section over again. And like I said before, this is mostly done on a pretty balanced manner. And it's not just precision platforming sections either. Later on in the game, challenges will get a little bit more tricky. That is when they're starting to alter Wario's physical condition more frequently. Oh yeah, I almost forgot about that. In this game, a few enemies are able to perform a certain type of attack on Wario, which will alter his condition. Conditions like being on fire, being frozen, being fat, being jumpy, or being drunk. Although that last one got changed in the European and the American versions of this game. In some areas, these conditions are necessary in order to pass a certain area. But sometimes those conditions can be really annoying too. Speaking of annoying things, there are a few more things I consider pretty annoying. First off, we have the water. I despise the water controls in this game, and I hate the rapid streams in some areas, especially when it sends you all the way back to the beginning of that area. Secondly, we have the sporadic room full of these little fuckers called Gucci. They look harmless at first, but when you make a noise or bump into them, they all start to move around rapidly and produce an ear-raping noise, knocking you back if you touch them. And then you just gotta wait for them to stop moving around before you can shoulder tackle the shit out of the others, resulting into having you to wait once again. You can try sneaking past them if you wish, silently crouch jumping and hoping not to bump into them, but make one mistake and you're fucked. So in my opinion, this is a pretty unnecessary and a cheap way of slowing down your progression through the level. And thirdly, we have another enemy called Gao Gao. This guy is just waiting for you to show up and then he's just like, and he keeps on throwing. A pretty annoying enemy in general, but worse when you need to do some platforming. Also, is it just me or does this guy look like one of the Beagle Boys? Let's move on to the level design. Most levels are pretty generic, go from your starting point to the end of the level and finish all the levels in the worlds. In the worlds there are a few levels that stand out from each other though. mainly by throwing in different elements of gameplay at you. There are levels in which you need to activate a certain switch to change the level design, activating lights in order to show you where certain platforms are located, or the ones that require you to hold on to an owl's talons and fly you through areas filled with spike traps. Most levels are finished by entering a door with a few flashy stars above it, while others require you to beat the giant spearman at the end. There is also one level in which you have to shoulder tackle 4 ducks in order to finish it, so you could say that there is a lot of variety put into ending each level. And that's not even all. There are a total of 5 levels in each world, meaning that at the end of each world you have to face off against the boss. And even though their attack patterns may differ, most of the battles function the same. Get caught once and you will be thrown off the screen, which results in you needing to relocate the boss room and starting over from scratch. But now that I'm looking back at these boss battles again, they don't really seem to be as hard as I remember them to be. Okay, never mind. I take everything I said back. Some of the bosses prove to be a fair challenge. While there are some bosses that like to take advantage of shitboxes. Basically what a shitbox is a hitbox. But shitboxes are hitboxes that don't make any sense, if that makes any sense. Does it make any sense? I mean, you can clearly see that I landed on his head, but I got captured anyway. And if stuff like that seems to be happening 20 times in a row, I get really annoyed. Also, this game has a rabid basketballer boss. And I think this is supposed to be a reference to Space Jam. You know, the one basketball movie starring Bugs Bunny and Michael Jordan. Anyhow, you defeat all the bosses and finish the game, seeing Wario travel back home with his treasures. But look at that, we're not even done yet. Looks like this game has more to offer. Don't feel like fighting the giant snake boss in Wario's basement? Find the hidden door in the same level and reverse to the cellar instead of going to Maze Woods. There are a couple of other levels with alternate exits too, which in my opinion is pretty awesome for a Game Boy game. Also, while playing the game you might have noticed that there are a few doors that lead you to this room. This, my dearest viewer, is a treasure door. Features a minigame, in which you have to memorize the enemy that is displayed on the card on the treasure chest, and then you have to choose the correct card later. Depending on what mode you choose, the cards will be displayed for a certain amount of time. There's hard, normal and easy. Hard costing you 50 coins, normal costing you 100 coins, and easy costing you 200 coins. Most of the treasures resemble other items from Nintendo's past, such as an ocarina from Ocarina of Time, a Game Boy, and Donkey Kong's Bananas. Next to the treasure doors you also get another minigame at the end of each level. In this minigame you gotta pay around 50 coins to flip a tile displaying a part of what is going to be a number. When you think you've flipped enough tiles, or when you've ran out of money, you get to choose one of the 10 possible numbers. If your guess is correct, you'll get a piece of the treasure map. Once you, the player, has collected 50 of the hidden treasures, completed the picture panel and unlocked each of the endings of the game, you've unlocked the real final stage. And a minigame. First off there's the Donald Duck, Dangerous Duck, Flagman minigame, in which you have to memorize his movements and then mimic them. This game is based off an older Game & Watch game called Flagman, in which you had to do the same, only this time it's with a duck. Then there is the real final stage, which is a time attack challenge. This level has one of the weirdest designs I've ever seen in my life. I mean, look at it! There are enemies petrified into the walls, and there are mouths and eyes and whatever, noses. What is this? In this level, however, you have to defeat another giant spearman, but in order to get there you have to traverse through one of the most annoying levels in gaming history. I kept falling into the water and it started to piss me off, so I decided to switch back to Game Boy controls instead of my GameCube controller. Seems like analog sticks aren't really meant for these kind of games. So eventually I got to the giant spearman and defeated him, obtaining Syrup's treasure, and now Wario can finally head home and relax. Wario Land 2 is a pretty solid game. It has tough challenges and overall balanced boss fights. Even though it can be a little bit frustrating at times, you can still have a lot of fun with this game. For completionists there are alternate endings and a shit ton of collectibles. It offers more than enough for a Game Boy game and you should definitely pick it up if you can find it. That being said, my final rating for this game will be an 8 out of 10. My name is Zen and I wish you a good night.